She had lost everything: her arms, her career, her identity, but not the quiet ember of hope buried beneath the grief. When Sophia agreed to the experimental implants, she had no idea they would challenge not just her body, but every fear and doubt she carried. The journey ahead was a battle between her old self and the person she could become. What happened next would redefine what it meant to truly overcome. Before we get into this amazing story, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. At Second Life Stories, we bring you inspiring tales of courage, hope, and how technology is changing lives for the better. Stay tuned. You won't want to miss the incredible journeys we have lined up. On a rainy spring evening, 28-year-old pianist Sophia Larson was driving home after a successful concert in Berlin. For her, music was more than a profession. It was the very essence of who she was. Every note she played on the piano was an extension of her soul. But as the rain intensified, the wet highway turned treacherous. In a split second, her car lost traction, skidded across the lanes, and collided head-on with a truck. When Sophia awoke in the hospital, the world she once knew was gone. Her body felt strangely heavy, yet empty. As the doctors explained her injuries, their words blurred together until only one devastating fact stood out. Both of her arms had been amputated above the elbows. The realization hit her like the crash all over again. Her hands, her connection to the piano, were gone forever. Sophia's mind spiraled into darkness. Days turned into weeks as she isolated herself, refusing visitors and avoiding even her own reflection. Her home, once filled with melodies, now echoed with a suffocating silence. Friends left voicemails she never listened to. Her parents' concerned glances went unanswered. She avoided everyone, except Lucas, her younger brother. Lucas was relentless. As an engineer specializing in robotics, he was fascinated by advancements in prosthetics and firmly believed that technology could offer his sister a second chance. One evening, as the rain pattered against her window, he showed up with a spark in his eyes and a tablet in hand. "I've been reading about this company," he began, sitting across from her. "They're developing bionic implants. Real ones, Sophia. Hands that respond to your nerves, almost like your own." Sophia's expression remained cold, her arms crossed tightly over her lap. "It's not the same," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I'm not the same." Lucas sighed, but didn't back down. He opened a video of a man gripping a pen with robotic hands, writing his name with precision. The man smiled at the camera as he moved his fingers effortlessly. Sophia couldn't take her eyes off the screen. A strange flicker stirred inside her. Not quite hope, but something close. Lucas noticed the shift and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "I know it's not the same, but maybe it could be enough to get you back to what you love." She didn't reply. That night, long after Lucas left, Sophia replayed the video in the quiet of her room. For the first time since the accident, she allowed herself to imagine a future where she could touch the keys of a piano again. Lucas arranged a meeting with Dr. Emily Carter, one of the most respected minds in bionic technology. Her reputation preceded her as someone who not only understood the science behind prosthetics, but also the human struggle that accompanied such life-altering changes. When Sophia entered the sterile, brightly lit office, her anxiety was palpable. She sat stiffly across from Dr. Carter, her guarded expression masking the turmoil within. Dr. Carter began by calmly explaining the process, using clear but compassionate language. She showed Sophia detailed diagrams of the implants and how they interfaced with the body's nervous system. "Your brain already knows how to move your arms," she said, her voice steady but warm. "We're just creating a bridge between your intentions and the tools to carry them out." Sophia listened intently, her skepticism etched into every furrow of her brow. The idea of robotic arms responding to her thoughts felt surreal, almost unnatural. Yet, as Dr. Carter described the technology's precision and adaptability, a small glimmer of hope pierced through her doubt. "What if it doesn't feel like me?" Sophia finally asked, her voice quiet, but weighted. Dr. Carter paused, her gaze meeting Sophia's directly. "That's a question only you can answer. But what I can promise is this. These implants aren't replacing who you are. They're helping you reclaim what's already inside you." Sophia wrestled with her fears for days after the meeting, but eventually, she agreed to move forward. The first step was fitting the implants and calibrating them to her neural signals. As the process began, she felt like a stranger in her own body. The robotic arms were sleek and advanced, but they were undeniably foreign. Rehabilitation was grueling. In the beginning, even the simplest task, grasping a glass of water, felt insurmountable. Her new hands trembled, dropped objects, or froze completely. Every failure chipped away at her fragile confidence. One particularly frustrating day, she broke down in tears. "I'm not a pianist without my hands," she sobbed, the words cutting deeper than she anticipated. Dr. Carter remained steadfast. "Music isn't just in your hands, Sophia," she said, her voice firm but gentle. "It's in your heart, your mind, your soul. These implants are tools, just like your piano. They don't define you. You define them." Sophia carried those words into each grueling session. Slowly, the implants began to feel less alien. They responded to her neural signals with increasing fluidity, mirroring her intentions. With time, frustration gave way to cautious optimism. For the first time, Sophia began to see the implants not as machines, but as a part of her, a bridge to something she thought she had lost forever. 6 months later, the day Sophia had been both anticipating and dreading arrived. For the first time since the accident, she sat before her piano. The room was silent, the glossy black surface of the instrument reflecting the artificial hands she was still learning to call her own. Her new fingers hovered over the keys, rigid and unsure. She closed her eyes, forcing herself to breathe, to find the courage buried beneath the doubt. Slowly, she pressed down on a key. The note rang out, clear yet somehow foreign. Her hands stumbled over the next few keys, producing clumsy, disconnected sounds. The melody she had envisioned fell apart before it could even take shape. Frustration welled up inside her, sharp and unrelenting. Each mistake felt like a cruel reminder of what she had lost. She slammed her new hands against the keys in anger, the discordant noise echoing in the room. "This isn't music," she muttered bitterly, her voice shaking. "I'll never be the same." Lucas, who had been watching quietly from the doorway, stepped forward. "You're not the same, Sophia," he said gently, "but that doesn't mean you can't find something new. You just need to give yourself time." Sophia looked at him, her eyes full of doubt. "Time isn't enough," she replied. But Lucas wasn't deterred. He handed her a virtual reality headset, explaining the training program he had discovered. The program simulated piano exercises, allowing her to practice movements without the immediate pressure of perfection. The virtual keys glowed softly, guiding her fingers with precision. At first, the experience felt awkward, like learning to walk again. But with each session, her movements grew smoother, more natural. The program tracked her progress, highlighting improvements she hadn't even noticed. As her coordination improved, so did her confidence. The music that had once felt out of reach began to take shape under her hands, first in the virtual world, and then on her piano. Mistakes still happened, but they no longer defined her. She started to rediscover the joy of playing, the sense of connection that had always driven her. Sophia's progress fueled a new determination. She decided to perform for the first time since the accident, organizing a small recital for friends and colleagues. It wasn't about proving herself to others. It was about reclaiming a part of herself she thought she had lost. On the day of the recital, as she prepared to step onto the stage, Sophia didn't feel fear. For the first time in months, she felt a spark of the musician she had always been, ready to face the keys and the world once more. The day of the recital arrived, and the small hall buzzed with quiet anticipation. Familiar faces filled the seats. Family, friends, colleagues, all waiting to witness something extraordinary. For Sophia, this was more than a performance. It was a reckoning with everything she had endured. Sitting at the piano, she felt the weight of their eyes and the burden of her own expectations. Her heart pounded against her ribs, the sound almost deafening in her ears. The stage lights cast a soft glow over her, illuminating the robotic hands resting on her lap. She took a deep breath, her gaze fixed on the keys, and slowly raised her hands. The silence was electric. For a moment, she hesitated, the doubt threatening to creep back in. But then she pressed the first key, and a single note rang out, clear and resonant. The melody began hesitantly, each note a careful step forward. But as the music unfolded, something shifted. Her fingers moved with growing confidence, guided by the rhythm that had always lived inside her. The pain of her journey poured into every phrase, her struggles woven into the crescendos and diminuendos. The music was raw, unfiltered emotion. It wasn't perfect, but it was powerful. Each note spoke of loss, each chord of resilience. The audience sat in stunned silence, their expressions a mixture of awe and reverence. They weren't just hearing music, they were hearing her story. Sophia's mind stayed focused, but she couldn't ignore the emotions swelling inside her. She thought of the accident, the endless hours of therapy, the moments she wanted to give up. But she also thought of Lucas, of Dr. Carter, of everyone who had believed in her when she couldn't believe in herself. All of it, every painful and beautiful moment, was right here in the music. As she reached the final chord, she held it for an extra beat, letting the sound linger in the air before fading into silence. For a moment, the room was completely still. Then, the applause erupted, thunderous and unrelenting. Sophia sat back, her chest heaving, her face flushed with emotion. She had done it. Not just played, but reclaimed herself. In that moment, she realized she wasn't just a pianist anymore. She was a symbol of resilience, a beacon for others navigating their own struggles. Her implants were no longer just tools, they were emblems of her strength. As she stood to acknowledge the crowd, she felt a depth in her music she had never known before, one born from the courage it took to rebuild her life. If this story inspired you, leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments. What kind of transformation story would you like to see next? We can't wait to see you in the next video.